I've been buying wrestling games since I was a young kid, like since the late 90s, early 2000s. I've been buying wrestling games since I first got money, since I got the ability to get wrestling games. And the fact that 2K26 is the first game that I've thought about not getting because of how frustrating it is sometimes with these games, or how much money it's trying to get from me, more money, that I had to write all of this stuff down of what would make these games more fun, worth that money. Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and I was inspired to make this video because I was on the YouTube channel The Pro Wrestling Shoot. I was watching their live stream and they discussed this very topic, and so it made me want to make my own. And it's the things that WWE 2K26 desperately needs in order to be a great game, because I don't want to say that 2K25 is a complete shit show, that it's horrible, that it's the worst game ever, because all of that would be lies. That would be an exaggeration. I think there are many things that 2K25 does well and do great, but there's plenty of things that either upset me or, from what I could see online, upset many other people. And I'm talking about the core fan base. I'm not talking about the casual people, the people that they probably want to try to get to buy the games for the first time. So let's start with what I think is one of the most important things. We need to get these games off of PS4 and Xbox One. It's wild to me that the current generation, I'm talking Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, that these have been out for over 5 years, and we have games in this series that are on both. They come out on both last gen and current gen. I even see people who describe PS5 as next gen, and it's like, brothers, this has been the current gen for 5 years, and we're at a point where there are people out there who are talking about PlayStation 6 and talking about like what's really next gen. So we need to get rid of the old gen, not just for perception and optics, but think of how much they're held back. Think of how much, when it comes to space, when it comes to things that can't be added because they're double dipping. Think of how much we could push this series forward if it was exclusively on the current gen. Now, speaking of getting rid of, we need to get rid of Showcase. Showcase mode is something that used to be one of my favorites in the series. It used to be something that I would love to play and maybe replay because of what you get from, whether it's a historical context or being able to see a video game reenact certain historical moments that were some of my favorites. I specifically can think of the Attitude Era mode from, I think, that would be 13, which is one of my favorites out there. Even 30 years of WrestleMania, being able to recreate stuff was always fun. Now, it's a chore. Now, it's something where I dread having to go into Showcase and complete the thing, whether it's because of certain matches being hard or impossible to do, or it's because the match ends and I forgot to do one objective and so I missed out on unlocking stuff. It's unlocking stuff because people could say, well, just don't do it, just avoid it, just skip it. I would probably skip it if I didn't have to complete this in order to unlock everything that I want to unlock. Back in the day, there used to be an accelerator thing where you would unlock everything right from the beginning. Now, that's not the case. Now, between Showcase and stuff like My Faction, they have things locked to where you'll only get it by going to those modes. And that sucks. It's not fun. Maybe if they did something unique, like an all-women's showcase, which I believe they did for the 4 Horsewomen one year, but I'm talking about more Trish Stratus, for example. She has been around for so many different eras and decades. Also NWO. I don't think they did an NWO showcase, at least if they did, I don't remember. If they didn't, then I'm just looking for an excuse to do more WCW content. There is not enough WCW content in these games, and this is something that WWE owns. They own everything WCW related, so this should be a no-brainer, no issue. Speaking of that, we need better Legends. The Legends is a situation where I've only noticed the last like 2 or 3 games that there is a huge emphasis on Legends from the 80s, even some of them from the 70s, when you're looking at like way back Rio San Martino and just like certain people that I'm like, what was it, Superstar Billy Graham. I am not saying to ignore that history or ignore those people and the impact that they've made in wrestling, but these are video games that are either aimed and targeted towards younger people than me, so they clearly don't give a shit about those wrestlers. But even people my age, I grew up in the 90s, I grew up from the Attitude Era. Why don't we have more Attitude Era people? I know we have some, and I know that with the DLC this year, we are getting more Attitude Era, and that's awesome, that's great. But I think we should have more. I think the majority of Legends should be Attitude. And maybe that just sounds like I'm only placating towards what I want, but I have to be honest, this is what I want. And I know some people, like when I mentioned the NWO showcase, you're probably saying, well, if you can't get Sting, then there's no need for that. And you're right, we need to have Sting a part of these games. Those few years that 2K had Sting was tremendous. Some of my favorite ones in the series was because Sting was there. And Sting has an AEW Legends deal, so again, I know that's tough. But if Jake the Snake, who is in AEW, can be in these games as a legend, if Billy Gunn, who's coming back to the 2K series in the DLC, if he can be in the games while being in AEW, why can't Sting double dip? Why can't he be in both? This is just for the games. While we're talking about other companies, TNA. I know that's a more slippery slope because the video game contracts and money-wise, that's a whole big can of worms. But because TNA has this working relationship with WWE, I think having TNA wrestlers in the game is a must, whether it's just DLC, but also imagine a My Rise story where your character gets released from WWE or has to go away and go on excursion and goes to TNA in the story, faces a bunch of TNA wrestlers, gets to unlock TNA wrestlers through My Rise. It's all there. Same thing with AAA. Like, I think this is a huge missed opportunity if we don't take advantage of that. Season mode desperately needs to make a return. I have been yelling to the clouds, championing the return of season mode for so goddamn long, and I think it's only something that if you're old enough to remember the older games that did have season mode, you can only appreciate it in that sense. Because I know people love universe mode, and I know people love what you have My GM now, and you have stuff like that. I'm not a fan of My GM. I just think it's very tedious, very boring. You have to do a lot of the shit yourself. Same thing with universe mode. Like, I try to get into it, and I do have some fun with it, but it's still me doing too much of the work in order to get the cutscenes, in order to get the stories, in order to try to recreate these shows. We need season mode in the vein and style of Shut Your Mouth, Here Comes the Pain, even Just Bring It had a season mode where you could choose any wrestler from the roster, like current wrestler, and you jump into a story. Maybe you get to choose, for example, if you're going to be Montez Ford, you get to choose if you're going to do a tag team season story with Angelo Dawkins, the Street Profits, or do you want to do a singles thing? You can pick somebody in the mid-card and do stories for the IC title, the US title. Or you can pick a main event guy right off the bat, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and you're going for the world titles. You're having much bigger, crazier stories. You can do the women and have the women do their own stories. But these are preset stories that play themselves out. You can also have what-if scenarios depending on your decisions throughout the story. Whether you want to turn heel or not, it's pretty similar probably to My Rise, but just have it more fluid, have it more freeform, because I miss the days of Shut Your Mouth where you can go through the arena, go through the halls, and try to meet people, to talk to people, to potentially set up matches, set up tag teams, go talk to the general manager for matches. How do we go backwards? How did we have such cool features back in the day, and then we took it away? We're not adding to these ideas. We're not bringing more of this type of stuff. I know that people like the promos that they have added for Universe Mode, and that's cool, but they don't even have dialogue. They don't even have audio. It's awkward. And I'm not suggesting it would be easy to get all of the wrestlers to record a bunch of dialogue, but even Shut Your Mouth in season mode would have things where if you went to talk to The Rock, they would splice in audio from the shows. They didn't get The Rock to record anything. They just used audio of him from a random Raw where he said, "Know your role and shut your mouth," and they added it to the thing just to have something. Stone Cold saying what? That was there, taken literally from a Raw show. We should be able to do the same things here. I know 2K is making an emphasis on stuff like the island. It's decent in concept, but execution was piss poor. My Faction, it's one of those things where the biggest negativity that comes from My Faction is because of how much they want you to spend, how much they expect you to spend. The gambling aspect of it is awful. I think if you're going to put money into this, then I should be able to know what I'm paying for. I should be guaranteed to be getting whatever card or persona cards that I want. It should not be random. I should not have to shell out hundreds of dollars in order to get Alexa Bliss 25, Roman Reigns 25, CM Punk persona cards, Triple H 99, which was the one that I spent so much money and time trying to get Triple H 99. It's kind of bullshit. We do need, I think, more matches, more dynamic matches. I know they added like the ambulance match and the casket match, and at first it was cool, but it got very tedious. There's so many glitches to where they make it nearly impossible to win, especially the ambulance match. Like, it was driving me crazy some of the times. I think we need to have more fun. Even though these matches haven't been on TV forever, they're still classic matches, like Buried Alive and Inferno. Like, I think there's a lot you can do animation style that could make those matches stand out. Also, Iron Survivor, which is a newer concept and is on TV for NXT, that could be a lot of fun as well. I think Hell in a Cell and cage matches need way more interaction, like in the gameplay. You need to be able to do more things with the cage and the environment. Hell in a Cell has some stuff, but I think it needs like a full revamp of making these fun. Maybe it's the lack of arcade-ness with the fighting, because I remember in the older games, it was a lot of fun to play these matches, and now it seems like a slog. I think super finishers need to be able to maybe end a casket match quicker, an ambulance match quicker. Like, if I have 3 finishers, I should be able to wrap this shit up whenever the hell I want. Backstage brawls need to have more environmental stuff. I talked about Here Comes the Pain, Shut Your Mouth. Back then, you could do a hardcore match and literally take your characters. Even SmackDown vs. Raw, you could do this, where you could take your characters from the stage, go to the back, you could see the hallways, you could go to the locker rooms, you could go to the parking lot, you could go to the GM room. There was different places to go. The fact that we don't have that now is wild. We should be able to go to the concession stands, Remember when we used to be able to go outside the building and it would be snowing? You could take the train to go to WWF New York. How do we not have shit like that today? How is that stuff of the past? We are way overdue with needing more CAW slots. Create a Wrestler is something that I think has been the lifeblood of many wrestling games, not just 2K games, but every wrestling game. You have to have a solid Create a Wrestler just situation. And we only have 100, and I know some of the developers sit there and they see 100. They see us complain about only having 100, and they think, really, you need more? Honestly, yes. When I'm done downloading all of the AEW wrestlers that I want, all of the Attitude Era wrestlers that should be in the games already that I want, the WCW wrestlers, the TNA wrestlers, I don't have room for original characters. I don't have room for alternate attires for the current wrestlers, because the alternate attires count towards those slots. How could I have all of the Seth Rollins gear and all of the CM Punk gear, people who change their gear often, Jey Uso, when it all adds up to the point where I'm screwed. I'm sitting here having to delete wrestlers because somebody has made something that I think looks super good. There's no reason why 2025 or 2026 that we don't have 200 plus created slots, and also better image counts, because the image glitches has been a problem for multiple games. It still seems to be an issue. Custom music is something that we used to have in the PlayStation 3, and I remember back then being able to download wrestlers or create wrestlers and then put in custom music that was wild, and I can't believe we've gone backwards. This might be more of a Sony PlayStation issue, but there has to be a way for 2K themselves to work this in somehow, whether it's to connect to Spotify, connect to YouTube, connect to whatever the music source is, and be able to add stuff, create a move and create a story, create a taunt. These are things that used to be in the old games. It's not number one priority for me personally, because that's a lot of time and hours spent into creating that, but I understand when I see other people complain and they want that type of stuff. I get why they would want it, and I completely support them wanting that. Last thing I want to mention is stop with the celebrities. I know this won't happen. Just like my faction in the island, like I know that's not going away. So I was just trying to give ways to make those better. But the celebrity stuff, again, it's not going away because maybe it's WWE who wants it, or maybe it's some other promotional thing, and maybe it's out of 2K's control. So this won't happen, but it's more of a plea. Don't do the celebrity stuff. If you're going to do the celebrity stuff, then have them already in the game from the beginning, because they shouldn't be DLC. They shouldn't be things that people are paying for. I think if we're going to be paying extra or waiting months and months for, we should be getting actual wrestlers because we're paying for them. We should be getting, whether it's more legends or more NXT people, more current people that came too late, debuted too late. That's not too much to ask for. There's nobody, I guarantee you, nobody who plays NBA 2K who bought WWE 2K25 because you put a bunch of basketball players in. I can guarantee not one person did that. So guys, let me know in the comments below what you think of my list of some of the stuff that I talked about. Let me know if you have your own stuff that needs to be in the next game. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!